Okay, I'm calling the hearing to order. I have, that is here, a terrible echo. Maybe somebody can fix that, but if it's not affecting everybody from preventing people from being able to hear me, I'll just go ahead. I have a script that we read at the beginning. So good afternoon. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment hearings for the Suburban Panel 2. We are a City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances to the zoning requirements and consents to sever land. Our hearings are now in person at Ben Franklin Place. We're at 101 Centerpoint Drive here. We also enable remote participation by video conferencing for our registered speakers. We're live streaming on YouTube, and the video will be archived and will be available for future viewing by the public. My name is Jay Baltz. I'll be chairing today's hearings, and you can address me by my name or as chair. With me are my fellow panel members, George Barrett, Heather McLean, and Julianne Wright. The procedure for the hearings will be as follows. Listed on the agenda and appearing on screen from time to time are the applications we'll hear today. For the sake of efficiency, we will deal with agenda items on a different order. Panel members have reviewed the planning reports and any written submissions in support of or in opposition to each of the applications. Today, we will hear any oral submissions relating to the applications. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. They also had to confirm in writing that they did so, or they'll need to swear or affirm an oath today that they fulfilled the sign posting requirement. Otherwise, we might have to adjourn or postpone the hearing. The panel may ask for a brief presentation of an applicant, followed by questions for the applicant and city planning staff. We'll then hear from the members of the public who have registered to speak, and we may also have questions for them. Finally, the applicant, who has the burden of proof, will have an opportunity to make a final comment or in reply. Please address your comments to me as chair, starting with your name and spelling it if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. All presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at my discretion. At the end of the hearing, the panel may either make an oral decision here, or we may reserve our decision, which means it won't be delivered today. In either case, and within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send the official written decision and reasons for it to all parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy. So does anyone have a question about procedure we'll be following today? Nothing? Not hearing any. We have several applications to hear from today. And first, we're going to have to deal with the preliminary and procedural matters. So first, any declarations of interest from the panel? No declarations. We're going to confirm the minutes from the previous meetings. What do we have here? I don't have in front of me which minute dates they are.
Mr. Chair, they are for May 3rd and May 20th.
Okay, so
Sorry, 17th.
are we we confirm both of those minutes? Okay, thank you. The minutes are confirmed. We're now going to deal with the adjournment requests. Allow me to find my little piece of paper. So we have several where adjournments have been requested today. The first is number 1 on the agenda, 481 Wentworth Avenue. The agent is Mr. Segreto, and Planning Department has requested the adjournment. Are there anybody who wishes to speak to the adjournment? I see Mr. Segreto is online. Do you have anything to say? You're muted again.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. Yes, I wish to speak.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that forestry has some issues with the trees from the neighbor to the south, and also planning was requesting this adjournment. Since then, my client has talked with the neighbor next door. We have sent in, I believe, 2 emails and a letter from the neighbor to the south of us that's affected by these trees. And in the letter, I'm not sure if you have received it or not, but basically on the letter, it does say that the neighbor to the south of us has no issues with the trees being removed as long as the property is reinstated or the root systems being removed and the trees being maintained on the property line. I don't know if forestry has seen it, if Nancy has seen it or not, and if planning has seen it or not. Maybe they can comment on it. I would like to proceed, but if we can't, then it would mean that they would have to look at it, and I would like to be put on the next meeting as soon as possible.
Can I ask forestry or planning to respond?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, we did receive the letters, and Nancy did have a chance to review them, and we believe that an adjournment is no longer required. Yeah.
Thank you. So is the committee okay to put this on the applications to consider today? Like, 1 second to move this. All right, we'll come back to you then, Mr. Segreto. We'll put it on the agenda. Thank you
so much. Thank you.
Okay, the second. Sorry. We'll ask people's indulgence. This is the first time I'm ever chairing one of these, and there's a lot of paper. Okay, the second one on the adjournment request is 340 Terry Fox Drive. Mr. Ireland is the applicant or agent. And is there anybody who wants to comment on the adjournment?
Good afternoon, it's James Ireland here from Novatech.
Yep.
I don't have any particular comment on the adjournment. We agree to it, so that's all.
Okay, great. So and this will be sine die, and it will come back when the items have been taken care of, and that's okay.
Yes, that works. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Okay, so item 7 is adjourned sine die. The committee is okay with that? Yeah, so that is approved. Well, the adjournment is approved. The next one is item 9, 131 Winding Way. Our LaBelle is the agent or applicant. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this one? This is the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority had requested the adjournment. I don't see, there's nobody to speak to this who is on. I'm not seeing anybody, so we will, oh, yes, please.
If I may, through the chair, the Conservation Authority requested the adjournment. Based on the application, there's been ongoing discussions with the proponent about the ultimate design. And until we've sorted out the ultimate design that's going to influence the number that's being requested as part of the variance, there have been discussions. I think the proponent's agent is now, I can see him on the call, so maybe I'll defer to him for comments on the application. But we have been working towards a resolution from the Conservation Authority side of things, which would then put us in a position to not request an adjournment, but that's not available today.
Okay, so you are still requesting an adjournment?
Correct.
Today. Yes. There's somebody from, I think, Hoban Architecture. Is that?
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm Merivale Road, and I'm representing the client as the agent for the application. And yeah, I understand from what Eric has just pointed out, it looks like we are in the process of reaching an agreement in terms of a revised layout, and we've circulated that to both the city planner, Justin, as well as internally to the RVCA. And we've had sort of offline discussions about a general agreement with the latest scheme, but unfortunately, due to some of the technicalities in terms of the setback or the request for relief on the setbacks, we are changing those from the original Committee of Adjustment applications. So as a result, I believe we're into a recirculation on that, and as a result, will require an adjournment. Ideally, we've communicated with the committee organization and with the city planner to confirm that we'll be submitting those updated documents by Thursday. So ideally, we could stay on the agenda for the next hearing.
I think we probably would be adjourning sine die, but with the intent to get you on as soon as possible. Is that
Perfect.
acceptable? Good.
Yep.
And the committee is okay with adjourning. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's that. We now have several that are on the unopposed agenda, starting with item number 3, which is 1545A Merivale Road. Let me get and we have. There it is. So are there, since it's on the unopposed agenda, we have Pamela White, who's the agent for the applicant, Nirav Patel, who's the applicant, and K.R. Shah, who are the applicant. I not sure I see them here, but in any case, I think we do not require the committee does not want a presentation from anyone. Is that true? Are there any questions of staff or of? So we have, no, this was.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Ms. White, sure.
Hi, it's Pam White. I'm a planner with Parsons. I'm agent for the applicant, and I had prepared a short presentation, but if the committee would prefer just to ask questions, I'm fine with that as well.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Questions would be perfect. So does anyone have questions for either for Ms. White on this one? No. All right. And any questions for staff? Are we, let me grab my piece of paper. Are we prepared then to, oh, I should ask, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak to this one? Anyone online who wishes to speak to this? Oh, seeing nobody. We don't have anyone listed. Okay, good. So and we're prepared to vote here then. We don't want to reserve it. All right. So I will, all in favor of approving? Yeah. Okay, so approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the next ones are 68 and 72 Lavergne Street. They are items 5 and 6 on the agenda, but they are the same. They're parts of they're two adjacent properties and they are the same issue. These are things that most of us have not seen before. A certification of validation of title. These had merged on title, and the owner is wishing to reestablish separate title for each of them. Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, there is an amendment to both applications.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So there are corrections where the wrong lots are cited on each of them. So 68 Lavergne should be lot 51, and 72 Lavergne should be lot 50 rather than the reverse. So that should be noted in the minutes. Do staff have comments on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No comments.
Is there anybody who is wishing to speak to this? Are we prepared to vote here? Yes, everyone? No. All right. So all in favor of approval? And this is for both items. So for 5 and 6 are approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
So now we have item number 4, which is 1070 Bakervale Drive. This time I will remember the correction, the change. So the variance is slightly different than it was. So variance B should read to permit the covered porches to project 2.45 meters into the required yards, whereas the bylaw permits a porch to project a maximum of 2.0 meters into the required yard, but no closer than 1 meter from any lot line. So that amends the previously stated variance. And that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's correct.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak to 1070 Bakervale Drive? Diane Mary is listed as the owner. But I don't. Oh, you're here. I'm
Good
so used to
afternoon.
listening at the screen. I'm very sorry. Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm here, but I don't have anything to speak.
That's fine. Just I'll ask if there are any questions for you from the okay, and we're prepared to vote on this now. Yes. So all in favor of approval? Right. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming out today. Approved. And finally, number 8 on the unopposed, not finally for the whole agenda, but finally for the unopposed agenda is 6817 Notre Dame Street. And that is Ashwin Jain and Celine Jain owners. Oh, Ashwin, I think. Celine Giraud as owners. Are they online and wish to speak? I see Mr. Jain.
Hi, I'm Ashwin Jain. We're building a semi-detached. It's under construction and, oh, sorry, I didn't address you as Mr. Chair, but yeah, my first time.
That's fine. And since we don't need a presentation, I'll just ask the whether there are any comments from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No comments.
And any questions from the committee? Yes, Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question to planning staff about condition number 2 and the need for plans for a private approach. Would that, since this is under construction, would that not have been dealt with at the building permit time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't comment on that. I'm not certain at what stage of the building permit process the private approach is addressed, but I can look into it if you'd like.
Just in future, if you could let us know whether or not a private approach should be a condition when the building seems to be under construction, if it hasn't already been dealt with. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, can I add one thing?
Sure, please.
So one of the other comments that was in the department's comments was from forestry saying that several trees were removed that were not initially scheduled to be removed. I actually have video, and I have because there was an issue with the neighbor as well. These trees fell over in that large storm we had last year. And we have video. Just I was taking it for insurance purposes. So those trees actually naturally fell over. The forestry is saying that I need to replant 6 trees instead of 4. And I wanted to confirm how that part works because I don't know how I'm going to fit 6 trees unless I do 2 in the backyards. And then, so there was a plan in place for what was supposed to happen and the storm changed things. So I just want to know how I should deal with that.
I will ask staff to please comment.
Sorry.
Bring that.
Sorry for that.
So yes, I can confirm that it doesn't really matter about those other trees that were noted in the report. There were two tree permits issued for trees that were permitted for removal. And the point was just that the inspector had made an arrangement, I guess, at the time to reduce the number of required compensation trees for those permitted trees if smaller trees could be retained. And in the end, those smaller trees, whether they were blown down in the storm or whatever happened with them, they weren't retained. So we're just going back to what was originally required and what the bylaw requires for any tree permit. So for the two trees that were removed, 3 new trees are required for each one. So if there isn't room to plant all of those on site, there is a process in place to just pay forestry for any trees that cannot be planted, and that will go into a tree planting budget.
Thank you.
And that's a condition.
Yes, that's a
Okay.
condition.
Is that, is that a satisfactory explanation?
Well, I mean, absolutely it is. But like, I could definitely, if somebody were to tell me with that, what I'm supposed to do now that a storm hit, then I'm absolutely happy to plant the trees. I like trees. It wasn't personal. So I'd love to just plant the trees. But I just want to make sure that when I plant them, it's not like, oh, but you have to make sure they're on city property, or you need to make sure they're like, so I just wanted to know what the requirements were around.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The applicant can contact me at any time and we can have a discussion on what's.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else who wishes to speak to this? And any questions from the panel? More questions? And we're prepared to vote on this? Yes, good. All right, so all in favor of approval? Yeah. Okay, so that one is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Right, so that completes the unopposed applications part of this. And so now we are moving on to, I need to get this right, number 2, 45 Inverness Road. I see Mr. Bruni coming to the front.
Sorry, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you missed item number 1.
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry. You're right. Sorry, we pulled that back off of the, yeah. We pulled that off of the adjourned one. So yeah, sorry. Number 2 is next. Like I said, first time chairing. Item number 1 on the agenda, 481 Wentworth Avenue. The agent is Mr. Segredo. And give us a second to get our information here. I also have listed to speak, but I think that's going to also will be remote as Wood Park Community Association, Ian McCallum, and we will get to that.
And Mr. Chair, there is an additional speaker, Mr. or Mrs. Wood, who will be speaking online as well.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So this is item number 1, and which is 481 Wentworth Avenue. This is to subdivide the property into 2 separate parcels for 2 new detached dwellings with reduced lot width and reduced area. I don't know if we do this first, but planning has requested an adjournment, but so I'm going to ask Mr. Segredo to for a brief presentation on this.
Sure. Can we go to the presentation, please? So what we have here is the topo plan, which is showing the trees along the back of the property and along the side of the property to the south. It's a single family dwelling, 1 story, 1.5 stories with a detached garage to the side. Next plan, please. This is the proposal that we're doing for lot 57 and 58. It is 2 single-family dwellings, and there is a lot width reduction. Both of them, with respect to lot width, is 11.44 meters, whereas the bylaw requires 15 meters. And both of them have a lot area of 348.6 and 348.8 square meters, where the bylaw requires a minimum of 450 square meters. Next slide, please. This is just the lot fabric in the area. You can see where the subject property is with the red star. The other lots that you see in front of you are semis that are, I believe, that are in yellow. I think they're in yellow. They're either semis or singles, but they're the same lot widths or very close to what we have in front. So the lot fabric there is that this has been done before, and directly behind us, I believe there are 2 single-family dwellings that are shown in yellow there. Next slide, please. That's the subject property, as you can see. We're hoping to demolish. Next property. That's the proposal that we have. That's our streetscape perspective of the proposed 2 dwellings, which meet all the other setbacks, front yard, rear yard, side yards, and height. Next slide, please. This is where we get into the tree information report. As you can see, there is only 1 tree that is to be removed, which is on the south side of the property. The other trees in blue will all remain. The tree in front, the yellow one, I believe is a city tree, that will remain as well. As I said before, we talked to the neighbor. He's given us a letter. He's in agreement with the cutting of the roots and retaining those trees. With respect to the other tree in the rear, the 2 that are in the rear in gray, they're going to remain as well. And the other tree, the blue tree in the rear, that will remain as well. We just have to be very careful when we excavate there to not damage the roots. And I believe we'll have a system there where we'll protect the roots as best we can. Next slide, please. And in the end of the day, this is what we're hoping to achieve. We're hoping to achieve that we can get 2 lots with 2 brand new homes on there, which has been done in the past. There were 2 letters that I did receive, and I did meet with the neighbor to the north, Mr. Barilotti. We had a good discussion, good dialogue in my office. He did have some concerns with respect to his property and the new property being built, that the grading would match his grading or a slight swale between the 2 properties. I discussed it in detail with him. I told him about it. His other concern was in the letter, if you look at lot 57, you can see a little projection there, which is a fireplace projection. He asked that we not have a foundation wall there, which is fine. We're not putting any brick on that side of the property, either siding or stucco, so that would be addressed as well. The other concern he had was with the decks in the back. He asked us if we can put some screening along the sides of the decks, and I said, yes, there's no problem with that at all. The other thing I believe that I read was the neighbors to the rear of us installed a brand new fence, and we were going to remove the old fence that is there, but I spoke with the owners of the property and they're aware of the fence, and they're going to maintain and protect the other fence as best they can, and not touch the new fence that was just recently put up by the neighbors. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Segreto from the panel? None. So as we said before, the original request for adjournment has been satisfied, so that's no longer on the table, but can we hear from city staff? If you have any comments?
Not particularly anything beyond the report, simply that the neighborhood is located in the evolving neighborhood overlay and is located quite close to future rapid transit as well, which would generally be supportive of context-specific intensification, which in this case is 2 single attached dwellings, which are permitted by the zone. So, yeah.
And so no concerns.
No concerns. No, not except unless Nancy has anything to add regarding the trees.
Thank you. My main concern, which is partially addressed in the tree information report, is just about the actual ability to retain the other boundary trees that are shown kind of between the new house and the existing house. The neighbors have provided permission to remove the one, which is in poor condition, so I have no issue with that, but there are 5 other trees, I believe, in that same line there, and the TIR doesn't really get into specific details on whether the setback is sufficient for them to remain. So I do have conditions that I'm requesting in here to better address that and to make sure that the setback for the building is sufficient. And that's really my main concern.
And those sufficient conditions are on the requested variances to take care of that.
I believe so, yes.
Questions from the panel? Ms. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to planning staff and to forestry, regarding the conditions, I guess with forestry for condition 2 through 5, and planning staff with regard to the asphalt overlay. So with forestry, since the committee's not dealing with development on this property, the committee's being asked to create 2 lots, two for the ownership purposes. Would these forestry conditions be addressed at building permit time? Or could they be addressed at building permit?
Thank you for the question. I'm just reviewing them here. The one for the signed letter of permission, that one actually could be removed because that was provided today. The one for the revised tree information report, this is the best time to deal with it, just because there may be, like, if the building has to be set back somewhat further from the trees to allow for them to be retained, there may be other variances required. So I'm concerned that that would not be caught at the building permit stage. So
The building permit wouldn't issue if there was another variance. They'd have to come back to the committee. Am I not right in that?
yeah, but then if a variance was required to retain a tree, the building permit doesn't respond to that. They respond only to the building code, and tree bylaws are not applicable law under the building code. So I'm just saying that a building permit would likely be issued without regard for the trees in that case. So this is the best time to actually ensure that it's being looked at appropriately.
But, and just to belabor that, the building permit would ensure that the zoning bylaw setbacks are met.
The zoning bylaw.
What you're
yes.
saying is that perhaps it'd have to be a greater setback? Is that what you're saying?
Potentially, yes. To ensure that the trees remain in a safe condition. And these are trees that are shared ownership with the neighbors. So it impacts 2 different properties.
Even though we're not dealing with the development, okay, so could you just go ahead with the other 2 conditions then? Excuse me.
The tree planting plan is a general requirement for any severance where we ask for new trees to be planted.
Could that be dealt with at building permit? Excuse me.
Compensation trees could be dealt with through building permit, but I don't really see a concern with having it here, just to have the planting plan in place ahead of that time.
I'll leave that for that. Excuse me. So does city planning staff with regard to the asphalt overlay condition? Is that not something that can be dealt with at building permit time? Is there not a roads bylaw that would govern that? Trying to reduce the number of conditions that are coming forward to the committee on severances for creation of a lot without a development proposal.
Well, generally speaking, a severance would be considered development under the Planning Act. So even though it's not a specific development proposal that we're considering, it is still considered development under the Act.
Well, we're creating a lot
Yeah.
for two ownership purposes, for ownership of two, creating from one owner to two owners, creating a lot
Yes.
for potential development. But the asphalt overlay, is that not something that's dealt with at building permit, like the road cut? And because the committee deals with private property, we don't really deal with city property. Our jurisdiction is limited to private property. I'm just wondering about this is there not a roads bylaw that would govern what you need to do when you get a building permit about, you know, connecting the services to the roads and asphalting? Is this something you could look into maybe and provide some guidance?
But again, it's I don't believe the actual asphalt would be part of the building permit because it's on public property. I could ask the EIT and get back to you on that condition, and that might be the best.
Yeah, maybe in
approach.
future, so we know whether or not this is an appropriate condition at this time.
Sure,
Okay.
I will look into that.
Because if there's a governing legislation out there that will apply in any event, then there's no need to add it to a committee of adjustment.
Okay, I'll check in.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have two speakers signed up, I believe. Where are we here? The Wood Park Community Association, represented by Ian McCallum, is first. And I see that Mr. McCallum is online.
Good afternoon. Ian McCallum, I'm the immediate past president of the Wood Park Community Association. I guess I'm the chair of planning and transportation for the association. I live at 1206 B Byron Avenue. And so unfortunately I was traveling during the period of notice for this property. So I'm pleased that Mike met with the neighbor Paul and had some good discussions. My concern and the association's concern centers around the boundary trees. So we've recently gone through a new official plan. We determined that trees were really important. And then at first opportunity, we are presented with this severance and decreasing the width of that side yard setback, which then hampers the quality of living environment for these trees. And so normally in the past, Wood Park is, shall we say, given fairly much carte blanche acceptance of increased lot area with encroachment in the side yards. In this case, because of the quality of the trees is going to be dramatically affected, we're basically talking about losing, you know, it's a 3.6 meters is being removed in sum total from the two sides. So that's a fair amount of width that's going to be removed. And then once you go through the excavation process in order to support putting in the cement forms for the basement and so forth, there's going to be very little undisturbed area for those roots. Compounding the issue, the new houses, the potential new homeowners are going to have those roots encroaching in their weeping tile system. You know, I think it would be prudent to potentially remove or encroach more on the side yards between the new homes and allow more space on the sides, thus providing more environment for those trees. You know, based upon the tree report, there was a number of ideas put forward as far as protecting the roots, putting down plywood, putting extensive shrouding around the trees. And one would hope that that would be included in this committee's report, so that it would be a condition in the future development of that property to provide the greatest protection for these trees. Wood Park, once upon a time, was a wood park, and between Emerald Ash Borer and a whole other host of development from semis to whatever, our canopy is diminishing and diminishing. And of course, LRT and the removal of all the trees from the Byron Linear Park has greatly deforested our neighborhood. So every tree counts at this point. So, and I guess I have, and so I was pleased to hear staff put forward their comments around protecting the trees. And through you, Mr. Chair, I'd ask staff, what happened to the mature neighborhood overlay? Once upon a time, my neighborhood sat within the mature overlay, and no report was generated or put forward on the committee's website to that effect. So I was just wondering what happened to that former bylaw. That's the sum total of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
So, actually, before we get on to questions, remain there. Perhaps you can address, the planning can address the question about the mature neighborhoods overlay.
I was just trying to find, there was a streetscape character analysis provided with this application, which, yeah, and the proposal does conform with it. I believe it probably should be on the website because it was in the folder. I did review it. So in that case, I would address it.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions for the delegate, for Mr. McCallum? Yeah. Is perhaps forestry would want to just comment on the issues of the trees again? I think it's probably the same answer as before, that the houses might have to be moved.
Yes, thank you. I agree with the delegate's position. I still do have concerns about those boundary trees, and I think that condition number 3, or I think it's number 3, yeah, with the revised site plan and tree information report, that's my hope, is that that will address any need to make modifications to the building or shift things further away. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. McCallum. So I hope that addressed that. They've forestry agrees with your concerns, and condition number 3 should, in their opinion, take care of that, address that. So thank you very much. We have also listed Mr. and Ms. Wood as having signed up to speak. Are they here?
We're just bringing them into the hearing.
Thank you.
Apparently, he does not want to speak.
Oh, okay. Then thank you. We also received, and I'll just note, 2 letters, one from Paul, which are in the report, from Paul Bartolotti and Lisa Wardell. Again, raising issues about the trees and density mainly, and we have read those and have seen them. So at this point, unless there is anybody, and there are not many people here present today or anyone else online who wishes to speak to this, then I will turn it back to you, Mr. Segreto, if there's any very brief final responses you want to make.
Yes. With respect to the side yard setback, it is a 6-foot side yard setback. Normally, when we do these things, are about 4 feet, 1.2 meters. But in this case here, we are 6 feet. We're at 1.8 meters, so it's about 6 feet to the building. And I will I will go over condition number 3, where it says where the tree protection is. We'll leave it at the mercy of our arborists to see if we can somehow manage to retain these trees and to protect the roots. If need be, and the report comes that we have to set it back a little bit more, then what that would mean is that the width of the building would have to be reduced slightly to whatever dimension that they want, a couple of more feet or whatever. But I'll leave it for the arborist to decide, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or so we're going to reserve this one. So this one is reserved. So Mrs. Segreto, in 10 days, you will have the decision in writing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now that I have not skipped item 1, we will move on to item 2, which is 45 Inverness Avenue. With Mr. Anthony Bruni is presenting for is the agent for the owner.
Hi, Anthony Bruni, agent for the owner, 76 Chamberlain Avenue.
So we probably don't need a full presentation today. I think there were some questions from the panel, though. So,
Before that, can I just speak to the bit of confusion with the community association?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Just I guess through the various websites, the Parkwood Hills, I think is what it was called, showed Inverness pretty much right smack dab in the middle of their boundary. And so we reached out to them with a couple emails. We never heard a response back. So typically assume that that means there's no concerns and don't need a presentation. We saw the comments from Mr. Alex McCauley from General Burns. And I guess apparently we're not part of Parkwood Hills, it's General Burns. And he said there's been this confusion that they're trying to sort out, getting that clarified. And apparently the boundaries showed on Parkwood Hills, he said, is like about a decade-old map that they have on there. So we had a good long chat this morning. I just wanted to connect with him, and since the opportunity was there, and we had a chat, and ultimately he sent an email following that, just outlining that the GBCA does not have any objections to the proposal. He said it was more just kind of raising awareness to the city of what they feel as, their services need to be updated. And there was some concerns about construction processes, which I told him, ultimately have nothing to do with this forum. However, my client would be happy to connect with him and make sure any construction processes, such as, making sure that when school buses go by, that we're not blocking them or have to reroute them and stuff like that. And which my client is actually going to be the owner of the new house. So they want to be good neighbors, and they're happy to connect. And ultimately ended the email with welcome your client to the neighborhood. He's happy that we had a chance to discuss it, and I can submit this if the committee pleases.
Are there questions of Mr. Bruni?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the General Burns community's concern, I think just for perhaps the information purposes of the panel, I'd like to ask city planning, can you comment on the adequacy of the services in that area?
Sure. So I spoke with the engineer this morning about this and asking them, how do we evaluate servicing constraints when we're looking at proposals like such as this? And they advised me that the nature of the zoning by permitting, whatever dwelling type, in this case, detached dwelling, that also takes into consideration what the servicing constraints are for the site. So in this case, they wouldn't allow detached dwellings to be built on the site if they didn't believe that there was servicing capacity for it. There are certain neighborhoods that I'm sure the committee will become familiar with, is already familiar with, where they have issues with that. And in that case, if there is servicing constraints, then will require, they said there's like a specific condition that they'll add in, which asks the applicant to evaluate. In this case, I confirmed with the engineer that they didn't have concerns with this specific application, which is why nothing was flagged at this time. But, for the panel's information in the future,
It is something that gets reviewed looking at the zoning, and then the applicant condition that's required is the requirement for a site servicing plan. And that looks at the site specifically to see how they're connecting to city services. So for example, you wouldn't want a super large pipe that would be appropriate for a larger development connecting to city services. They're looking for what is appropriate based on what is actually proposed.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Yeah, Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I'll ask Mr. Bruni, from your experience, the asphalt overlay, have you had any experience with it, how that is dealt with through the building permit process, or?
Typically, I believe when it's required, it's shown on the grading and servicing plans as part of the building permit process. I believe it's through engineering that's dealt with.
Okay, so you feel it's dealt with it. I'm not going to change or deal with it today. I was just ask planning staff maybe to look into it in future, whether it's something that is already.
Yeah, no,
covered.
I was actually a bit surprised by it. I can't recall if it was on the last one that we had, but I always thought it was for once you had several road cuts in a on a street that you would then have to do an asphalt overlay over that section. We will only have one road cut. We're not putting in two services. The existing services on the house will not, on the existing home, because we're retaining the existing home, will not be touched. So we will only be doing one road cut. And when we do a road cut, we have to patch and repair the asphalt to the city standard. So actually, I'm not sure if it actually applies to this property, but maybe planning department can speak to that.
So I think similar to the last file that we can certainly look into. It's my understanding, same as my colleague, that it applies with these asphalt over the public lands. But it's something we would have to get back to the committee on.
Thank you. I'm just thinking that it's something that is looked after as part of the building permit process and doesn't need to be a condition in future, but we'll wait and get some response. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question to that? How would this be dealt with since it's a condition if it's not actually required? Is it just, will my client, when completing the severance, will that be, could it be addressed at that time?
Just clarify, so can it be addressed at building permit?
Yes. Like I said, I mean, my understanding for the asphalt overlay is when you have multiple road cuts, and we should only have one road cut because it's only one new service on this development.
So I'll clarify that the asphalt overlay, it's not a building permit issue. It doesn't get dealt with at that time. That's my understanding. It's ultimately up to the EIT. They determine if it's required based on the road cuts. I'll have my colleague Siobhan. She will be able to speak to it a bit more.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in. So Sam, I believe you'll have a condition for your servicing and grading plan. So when you submit the servicing and grading plan, the engineer will review that. And if the servicing and grading plan demonstrates that you'll have under 3 cuts, then the engineer would just clear that asphalt overlay agreement condition while they're reviewing the servicing grading plan. If they do in fact determine that there's 3 or more cuts, it's at that point that they'd let you know that you'd need to enter into the agreement. And in terms of the discussion around whether it be appropriate if it's captured at building permit, we'll go back and get confirmation on that, but it's been our standard practice to request the asphalt overlay when there's a severance application. My assumption is that in case someone starts constructing the building after the severance and they haven't finished all the road cuts, but we'll get confirmation on that and come back to the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from the committee? No. Is there anyone, we don't have anybody who has registered to speak on this one. Is there anybody? I mean, there is nobody here. I do not believe there's anybody here who wishes to speak to it. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak to this? And we don't have any registered, and we had received the one comment from the community association, which we've already discussed. Do you have any final comments, Mr. Birdie?
No, Mr. Chair, unless there's any more questions.
Anything further? We will reserve this. Okay. So you know the drill. Within 10 days, you'll have the written decision for the application. Thank you very much. Okay. That concludes item 2. We are now to item 4, correct? No, we've done that.
Actually,
Sorry, I moved that up. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. We are to item 8. Which is 6817 Notre Dame.
we're actually at item 10, Mr. Chair, 6950 Notre.
Oh, we have moved both of those up. Yeah, this is why somebody else is actually chair of this, because they know how to do this. We are at item 10, 6950 Notre Dame Street. And we have Mr. Hume is the applicant for this one. Maybe the agent for the applicant, and I'm going to pull my paper out here. Is Mr. Hume with us?
My name's Allison Clark. I'll be
Okay, there you are.
representing.
Hi. Yes.
I do not look like Peter Hume, you might guess.
No. So we'll note it's Allison Clark who is presenting this for Peter Hume and Associates, I guess.
Yeah, go with that.
Do we want a presentation on this one? Yes, yes. Okay, so if you could do a short presentation, please.
Is this to myself or to planning staff? Sorry.
No, that's to you. Yes, please.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much. Through you, Chair, and thank you for and committee members for your time today. My name is Allison Clark, and I'm representing the owner of the property. There is a few things that we'd like to highlight with respect to this application. First and foremost, this is a zoning compliant consent application. We are not asking for any minor variances. Committee members may recall 2 weeks ago, I presented in front of this committee and okayed an adjournment request from the city as they had made an addressing error. We felt it was the right thing to do to accept that request. And at that time, it should be noted that city staff had no concerns with this application. Here we are 2 weeks later, and we received a note yesterday that they do in fact have some concerns with this application. I would like to say that we do note staff concerns with regards to the tree canopy. As noted in the proposed conditions, we are happy to provide an updated CIR showing the locations of the specified number of compensation trees, 50mm calipers, required under the tree protection bylaw. The concerns that they have will be addressed through the conditions that they are imposing on this proposed severance. We are completely comfortable with those conditions and have no issues clearing those conditions to further prove that this application does align with the city's official plan. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Questions? I'll ask a question. They noted an endangered butternut tree as one of the species on there. Can you address that?
Yeah, we are going through the appropriate measures with the MECP on that, and there's an online registry and a process, and we are in the midst of that now. And compensation will be required.
So it's a tree that would have to be removed.
Yeah.
No questions? Yes. Mr. Barrett.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff regarding the tree question. There's a willow along the driveway, which is in fair or poor to fair condition, and on a 1 meter slope. I don't know whether there's really a reason to retain that tree, given its condition, as well as the nature of that tree would. I know it's hanging over both properties, the adjacent property as well as the client's property. So, can you give me some information on that tree in specific?
Yes, thank you for the question. My main concern about that tree was simply that it's actually on the adjacent property or shared with the adjacent property. So without knowing who owned that property, I couldn't be comfortable that the tree would not be impacted with this development. I don't really have an issue with it being removed as long as everybody's aware and the proper permits are in place. Because it was noted, the condition. I was on site and it looks relatively good to me, but it is noted that there will be significant impacts to this tree if the site is regraded.
That's correct.
Yes.
So a question to Allison with regards to the driveway and the grading of the driveway and the location of that tree. Do you see potential issues with that, trying to leave that tree, or have you discussed that with the budding neighbors with regards to that tree?
So as Ms. Young may have just alluded to a little bit, my client is actually the owner of that adjacent property as well. So that obviously provides us with some greater comfort that we can retain the tree because he is also managing the development on that subject property as well. We feel confident with the preliminary plans that we're working with that tree can be retained, but subject to these conditions and further information that we'll have to provide as further detailed grading becomes available. We'll have to review that, but as of right now, it looks like we can save that tree, yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Maybe I'll just ask planning again in future to determine which conditions could be addressed at the building permit stage as opposed to being added to the committee of adjustment stage. And the other question for forestry, if the building footprint is as of right, can the tree bylaw override the as of right footprint?
Sorry, would you like me to go first?
I'm just trying to look for clarification. So my understanding is that the proposed development is permitted under the zoning bylaw. So I'm just wondering, can the tree protection bylaw override the permitted footprint?
Thank you for the question. It is extremely difficult for the tree bylaw to override the zoning bylaw. So that is why we try to deal with them here to address the plans earlier than building permits. So if a building permit is issued and the applicant has the right to construct as per the zoning bylaw, that would impact trees, definitely. So forestry would have limited ability to say no to a permit unless it's an extreme situation. And we would need buy-in from a lot of other departments to do that. So that's the concern here. It looks like there are quite a few other sort of offsite impacts here that we don't have full understanding of with the information we have today.
We do not have anybody signed up to speak that I have seen, and we haven't received any comments other than from staff. Ms. Clark, do you have?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we do have a Stefan Cliche
Oh, sorry.
from 1402 Clay Court.
Online? Oh. Oh, there it is. Sorry.
Okay, I'm on now. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate a bit of time here, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm the neighbor in the back for the last 30 years. I'm very familiar with the surroundings. One of the things that attracted us to this area was obviously having the opportunity to share in the back park, and especially with the mature trees around. So I did put together a bit of a presentation. I don't know if we can put that up, Mandy.
We're able to do that from here. Oh, there it is. It's up.
Okay, wonderful. So as I mentioned, you can kind of see the streetscape, the surrounding neighborhood. To the left is 6958, which is Mr. and Mrs. Leblanc, one of the very first pioneers in Orleans. You can see a lot of the greenery and the mature trees that we were speaking about, butternut tree and other trees. This was already presented to the Committee of Adjustments back in February 2020 to sever the lot in a couple, as you can see, with 6954-52 with 2 semis being built and a duplex. That has changed as per the committee or the planning report, whereas the duplex is now a long semi-detached, which is a subject of today's 6950. On my next slide, you'll see what I was able to gather through the listing a few months back from Remax, and you can kind of see the picture of that duplex, which was presented, parking on front, and I think there was an added dwelling in the back. But nonetheless, you can see a bit of the grading as mentioned. There is sidewalk, and I imagine there'll be a poured retaining wall very up to the property line of the neighbor at 6942. And you can see to the left Semi-A and Semi-B, which is, I understand, owned by the current developer, which was already presented and approved. If we move to slide 3, one of the things I did note was the setback for those 2 semis, which I think is important as we look to the neighborhood in the back. Everyone is enjoying a lot of green space, no fencing, very open and usable. What's has changed from what I see is that duplex is now a long semi. And where 4 parking spaces, you can see here on the black as I depicted, very much consuming all of the space, the greenery, butting up right up to the fence, with 0.3 meters as a side, edge. So some concerns, obviously, from what I can see, a lot of infrastructure going into place. So those risks in terms of water management, storm, snow removal, I know that was an issue as it was raised in February 2020. Where is that all going to go? Seems as though we're putting a lot of infrastructure, asphalt, interlock, retaining walls to the detriment of our green canopy. I think it was mentioned as well that tree is shared. It's just going to have an impact on the streetscape, the landscape, and the lot fabric with the neighboring neighbors. I understand the idea is to put 6 potential homeowners in the space, but we do see a bit of a concern, not only for the reduced space, but the impact to the noise with vehicles parking in the back and the lights and so on. So wanted to bring things to your attention. Understand the owner also owns the lot right beside. Could we foresee the replication of this to the left, adding even further risk to the properties and the homeowners and the city with the park in the back? So I thought I'd share this with you in terms of a resident in the area. It doesn't seem to fit well with the neighboring infrastructure in the homes. Any questions for me? Any thoughts?
Thank you. Questions?
It was mentioned that in the others I was listening in, there was reach out to community association. Certainly haven't heard any reach out to discuss these significant changes in terms of a property development to what was earlier presented in terms of a duplex and semis on these two on the lots. So it's certainly welcome a discussion to see what can be done to minimize any impact to the existing neighbors.
Ms. Clark, do you want to respond?
Sure, and thank, I didn't catch his name, but thank him for coming out. Absolutely. I mean, I will point to the fact that this is the consent application. This is not to permit a use that is not already permitted. So this is a zoning compliant consent. We're not really considering the building form today. I guess that's all I would say to him, but I did have a comment just as Ms. Young was just wrapping up. She said that there was some off-site concerns that she had, and I just wondered if she felt that she was able to capture those concerns in the conditions that she has imposed, and if so, are the concerns alleviated by us clearing those conditions or working through clearing those conditions with confidence that we can.
And there seem to be some other that are not within our purview, things like fences, and I assume that you can talk directly to the neighbors about those sorts of issues. Anything from city staff on this?
Sorry, yes, I can respond. Yeah, I believe that the conditions listed should alleviate my concerns about the off-site trees. We do need an updated tree information report to capture all of the protected trees surrounding, and I believe there's one. My main concern basically is about the parking lot in the back and impacting neighboring trees, which may not be covered under the tree protection bylaw. I don't know the size of them, but certainly the parking goes right to the property line. So there's something that can be adjusted with that through the condition exercises, then that's primarily what I'm looking for.
So may I address a question? So would the conditions as written allow you to address that in the subsequent process?
Yes, I believe number 8, the one to provide a revised site and grading plan and kind of listing the items that should allow for that to be captured.
So you wouldn't need anything additional from this committee today?
I don't believe so, no.
So is I guess Ms. Clark, then you have the final comments?
Thank you. And again, I didn't catch his name, but thank the resident for coming out, and thank all the staff for their review time and yourself, Chair, and committee members. As I stated, we feel confident that we can clear these conditions, and if staff concerns are alleviated through imposing these conditions and clearing those conditions, we feel at the end of the day that this is a zoning compliant consent. And we will do everything we can to save as many trees as possible, provide the required compensated trees where appropriate, and fit in nicely with the existing neighborhood.
Yep. Thank you. Anything final from the committee? And we're going to reserve this? Yes. All right. So Ms. Clark, the decision will be reserved, so you'll hear within 10 days about what the decision is. So thank you very much,
everyone.
Yes, thank you. So that is the last application, and nobody is jumping on me now to say that I got it wrong again. So that is the last application. Is there any other business from the committee? No? Are we okay to adjourn? All right, thank you. So I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, and thank you to everybody online.